Hello, everybody. How are you doing? I hope you're well wherever you are in the world. And if you're not, I hope we can provide some light entertainment for you. Yes, I am wearing ears again. That's because we're still reading the Dr. Dolittle book, the one called The Story of Dr. Dolittle by Hugh Lofting. And it was published in 1920, I think. Yes, I've got that written down somewhere. And here's my coffee just magically appearing, thanks to this magician. If you're looking for him online, that's Son of Jev, also known as PJ underscore NZ on places like Twitch. Good to see you, Forez. Great to have you here as well. So what we're doing at the moment is we are reading Dr. Dolittle, the first of the Dr. Dolittle books. Now, I remember seeing something of it when I was a kid on TV, but I haven't yet managed to find out which one it was, which production it was. I don't think there's quite as much detail on that sort of thing back then because it's a long time ago, as what there is now for every TV series that is actually out there now. But anyway, that doesn't really matter. So I have pictures in my mind specific to the way the story functions, the sort of characters in it, the things they do, what they look like. And I remember when I first looked at this particular digital copy, being a little bit surprised at the depiction of Dr. Dolittle because he's got kind of a lumpy, chunky face. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but just it didn't actually match up with what I remembered of Dr. Dolittle. And then I thought, oh, maybe it's because I was watching a TV series when I was a kid, and so therefore the depiction is a little different. Anyway, doesn't really matter. It's just one of those things. The pictures that get drawn inside your head sometimes just set us a little bit crooked when it comes to our perception of things. I am just going to set up a couple of images here. I think. Yes, I am. Because I was going to do it before, and then we had somebody arrive, and somebody needed to do some information stuff, and I couldn't find the information stuff that they needed to do, and all that sort of thing. And it was just like, oh no, it's all just overwhelming. And I had to host a Zoom meeting and other things like that. Such is a day in the life of a busy person who reads online. Anyway, doesn't really matter. I am just getting the first few of these images set up in my my OBS so that I can show them to you at the right time. That one, getting them in the right sequence. Now, just keep in mind when I'm reading that the book is a product of its era. So if there are attitudes in it that you don't agree with, that's okay. You're allowed to not agree with them. We're not going to get into an argument with the author because it's too late. He's already dead. You know, this is a long time ago that it was written. But, you know, accept the fact that the world was a little bit different to what it is now. The attitudes in it may not have been correct, but that's just what they were. And that's the way life is in general, is not everything is the way we think it ought to be now. And yes, we can be a little bit judgmental about some stuff that used to be done differently to what it is now. But we need to keep in mind that one day somebody will come along and look at the way we did things and say, oh, they could have done better than that. Maybe we were doing as reasonably well as we could at the time. That's just the way life is. So even if something comes across as something you don't agree with, one of the things we've learnt here on this channel is that we can learn from every situation that we are exposed to. Yes, there are some truly horrendous situations that we don't want people to be exposed to, but there are some other things which are not the best, and they are can be a little bit offensive. But if we don't dwell in that place but learn from it, then the opportunity is not wasted, put it that way. So one of the things I have loved about reading over the years is the fact that I've learnt so much about so many different places and so many different people and the way people live and all sorts of things like that. And I have to say, I put that down largely to having a family who's travelled a lot, even if I haven't at different times. Different family members have. I have a great aunt. I had a great aunt. She's now dead. I mean, she's still my aunt, but she's dead. Um, I have a great aunt who lived in China for 7 years when it was not a communist country before it became a communist country. There's not a lot of people in New Zealand really who have that sort of life relationship exposure to people. But it's all stuff that we can learn from. Thank you, Happy. That's great that you appreciate that. A lot of life is what we choose to make of it. And yes, there are some things that we do need to get wound up about and do something to change. But things like children's stories, unless it is heavily racist and is preaching that, and that is the focus of the book, I think we can read it and learn from it if it's not too harsh. Right, hi, it's great to have you here. Thanks for being here. So, what was I going to say? Oh, I should probably introduce myself. Hi, I'm Jev. I read old children's books, if you hadn't already figured that part of it out. I'm just looking behind my magic curtain here. No, it's not the one in The Wizard of Oz. This has just got stuff stored behind it. So this is the sort of book that I grew up reading. I didn't read this particular one because my dad found it reasonably recently in a book of my grandmother's, his mother's things. And so this particular book was printed, no, I don't know when it was printed actually, but it was given to my grandmother's brother in July 1897. It's not in a museum. It's not in a special collection at a library where you have to request and make applications to why you want to see it. And then wear special gloves so that you don't tarnish it or cause it to decay or anything like that. That's just in amongst the various bits and pieces at my house, because that's the sort of books I grew up with. They're the sort of books that were lying around because those are the ones we had. And we looked after them to a certain degree because you never knew when you were going to get a book again. When I was growing up, the only library that we had that was any use to those of us who were readers was the school library. And I did read a lot of books at school. There was a wonderful series when I was at primary school, which is also known as elementary school, I think, if you're in the States. It might be known as first school or something like that over in England. Although first school may be just the younger band of ages, I'm not sure. Anyway, so when I was at school, there was a series of books that were retellings of Greek and Roman myths, Greek and Roman mythology. There were probably other ones as well, not just Greek and Roman ones, but those were the ones I remember. So they were retold so that kids could understand them, but they were not diluted and they were not modernized. They were just retold in such a way that the words used were actually understandable for a child to sit and read them as a chapter book. And they had little illustrations in. And that was where I first remember coming across a chap called Aesop, Aesop. You might have heard of him. He's the one who wrote Aesop's Fables. And then years later, I came across a book that was an English translation of his fables. Some of them are really, really short, like 1 or 2 pages. It's the same with Grimm's fairy tales. Some of the books, if you read a copy that is an English, because I only read English and only speak English, even though it's Kiwi English. If you read an English translation of the Grimm brothers' fairy tales, one of the earlier ones, earlier editions, some of them are reasonable length stories and some of them are very short, like 1 side of a page or 2 sides of a page, and that's it, to make the point that they were making, instead of padding it out to make it into a big, long, fully involved story. They just got to the point and told you the point so that you could learn from it, because that was the idea behind these fables. Anyway, so I grew up reading things from the school library, at the school library, but also borrowing them and bringing them home. Otherwise, there were books that we were given as presents, and we also looked after those fairly carefully because Books were expensive. You didn't know when you were going to be able to get them. Man, I sound old. Yeah, I am, I suppose. Anyway, so these sort of things, these sort of books, and then on top of that, the gem was being able to find books at my grandparents' house, books that were written for children, and discovering whole new worlds, different countries, different time periods, not just fairy tale time periods, but a book that was written in what was the author's present tense, but very obviously to me as a reader, was written a long time ago. And I grew up reading these sort of books and just appreciating them, but to a certain extent taking for granted that I had this access to other fields of thought, other people's way of thinking, and all that sort of stuff. Until I started to realize at secondary school that there were things I understood that a lot of the others I was at school with had no clue about, just because they hadn't had that sort of experience. They hadn't had family who'd travelled as much. They also hadn't read such a wide range of books. And it has meant that, for me anyway, I have appreciated the broader outlook that I have on life than maybe some of the ones that didn't get those opportunities. So for me, that's part of the reason why I like reading them, is because I want to share that sort of opportunity to expand your mind, to help you to think about the world differently to just what we see in the current media that we have, using old media. Nothing wrong with that. And if you ever find yourself particularly unwell but bored, and you need something to do to keep your mind occupied, but you can't cope with reading a normal book, like a book that's written for adults, go and get yourself, even if it's just digitally through your local library, through their ebook lending scheme, go and borrow some children's books, especially some of the ones that are slightly older, and you'll probably only be able to get the ebook versions of those rather than the physical versions, because most libraries don't keep a very big collection. If it's not very popular or published in the last 3 to 5 years, it will not be on the shelves for a lot of places, because space in a library is expensive. They have to pay for the lease on the space, or they have to pay the council taxes for using it. They have to pay for electricity, all those different reasons that are given for why they try to shut down libraries. Yes. So, yeah, if you're stuck and you need to give your brain something to do and you physically can't do anything and you can't cope with intense books, then read kids' books. Picture books are fine, beginning reading books, but ones that are written for an adult to read to a child, those are usually quite good too. Beatrix Potter was never designed to be read by the child, but by a family member reading it to them. The language in them is way too complex for a child to be able to grasp at the level that the story is aimed at, if you think about it. There you go. Anyway, so that's who I am. That's a big part of why I read. There's probably lots of other reasons too, but that doesn't matter. You don't have to cover them all. I do have 3 tips for those who are new here. The first tip is something to drink. The second tip is something to snack on. And the third tip is somewhere comfortable to sit, unless you have to work or something where you can't. And that's okay too. We have contingencies for that. So, something to drink. I always have water handy. Water is brilliant for keeping your brain working, and as well as your body. And you'll see me sipping away on not this water bottle, because this one falls over too easily. It's too tall and skinny, although I love the bottle. And that's me rattling, putting it away. I actually usually would drink from this, and it helps to keep the voice working. So there you go. So drinks. I also have a cup of coffee, which those of you who were early managed to see the magician bringing it, conjuring it up for me. That was my son, my adult son. He likes good coffee too, so it's great when he's able to make me a coffee, because I know it's going to taste good. So that's point 1 is drinks. Second point was snacks. So today we have some plastic cheese, which I am happy to say is not turning green screen effects on. Yeah, for some reason or other, my green screen sometimes detects orangey yellow cheese as green and then tries to give you the picture that's behind me. But in addition to that, I have, and I'm just going to be very noisy here, pretend it's ASMR, okay? Because I'm just opening out a packet of crackers so that you can see them better, because they don't look very good when they're in cellophane. If I'm waving them at you, I won't open the cheese though. But I've also got this sort of cheese and crackers. So I've got some camembert from the supermarket and some crackers. And yes, I do have a little sharp knife for cutting my cheese with if I need to. If I actually have take enough time to eat my cheese, because I often don't. Sorry about that, Happy. My what it's done is it's hidden away the rest of your comments, but the reason why is because of the length of the comment that you made. Because I have been hate rated before, and I've also had chat bots in before, so I have some pretty strict auto moderating systems in place. I am just going to copy what you said and paste it back in, because it won't have that effect on me. But this is what Happy said. I have a pretty good collection of books, I'm guessing. I have found your suggestion to be helpful before. Even if I don't want to, I noticed as a kid that if I force myself to read a short kid's story when I'm upset, I feel better, or at least more balanced afterwards. Absolutely. It changes the way you're perceiving the world, the way you're relating to the world, and also how you're feeling about it. Before I stream, I usually post a picture up on Instagram. Actually, I'll just see if I can give you the link for my socials. Yes, thank you, Goriki. Sorry about that. And for some reason, that's not going. Oh, I forgot to make that command. So my chat has a 150 character length modifier on it, so anything over 150 characters is not going to come through. And the command that Goriki put in there should have a system in place that will tell you what the purpose of that is, and I need to write that up. I haven't done it yet. Oh dear. I thought I had one here for my socials. Social, not socials. Yeah, there you go. It might have been because oh, great, he's added it. That's good. Social, not socials. Okay, so Twitter and Instagram, those are my handles there. They're basically, I'm Jev, wherever you find me. There are 3 Vs. Yes, I seem to have an affinity for 3s. My Instagram is jevnz for New Zealand. The letters N and the letter Z. The letters N and Z at the end of the Jev with the 3 Vs. If you address it with 2 Vs, you will not get hold of me. Anyway, so I post pictures on Instagram usually an hour to half an hour before I start streaming, just as a reminder for some of my friends that I'm going to be streaming. So the one today was a lovely picture of, yes, 3 Vs. They should be in there. 3! All 3 of them. Yes, I'm stealing everybody's Vs. And I don't even drink V. I should try it someday to see what it's like, just because I'm quite happy with caffeine. So Instagram, I posted when I was saying that I was going streaming today, that I posted a picture of this beautiful magnolia tree that's flowering outside our local butcher's in town. And it's been there for years, and it's always stunning. And the thing that always blows people's minds is magnolia trees, this particular style of magnolia, flowers at this time of year. So in New Zealand now, it is winter. It is seriously winter. Now, the part of New Zealand I live in, we get a bit of frost, especially in town, which is away from the coast. They get quite a few frosts during the year. Where I live, which is just overlooking the sea, we don't get so much frost because the salt in the seawater modifies the temperature, and you can look up that science for yourself. It is true. It makes a huge difference. We would have no frost at home. We'd get on the school bus, go to school, and we'd be driving. Once we got away from being right by the coast, we would see paddocks that were just white with frost. The school field was white with frost until the sun got up enough and had been shining strong enough to actually melt it all. So the thing that astonishes people who are new to the area is that this beautiful magnolia tree. It has flowers that are the big magnolia flowers, the really large buds that open out like this, and they're white on the inside, and then there's deep purpley pink on the outside, and they don't really start getting many leaves on until later in the year when most of the flowers have fallen off. And so this magnolia tree is just blooming away. It's smothered in these flowers. You've seen cherry blossom trees covered in flowers. Well, it's like that, but with giant flowers. They're quite chunky flowers. And my comment on the post was that for me, because it's right in the middle of town, right next to all the traffic, right next to the butcher's shop, and all that sort of thing. My comment, actually, I'll just find what I said because it's a better way of putting it than what I'm about to blunder with. And yes, I will start reading soon, but this is all part of my general roundup of who I am and what I do. So you just kind of have to put up with it or find something else to do. Oh, thank you for adding in the socials with an S as well as without. Go Ricky. Go Ricky's one of my moderators, and he's a fabulous moderator. If he ever offers to moderate for you, say yes. Don't turn it down. Don't take time to think about it. He is excellent at it. In fact, if you go to his Twitch channel, not while I'm reading, please. If you go to his Twitch channel, open it in the background. I should actually have that as a standard one anyway. So if you go to his Twitch channel, he's got some saved videos there of discussions he's had, well, talks he's given basically on streaming security, and they're very good and they're worth listening to. He is talking about possibly redoing them so they're a little bit more to the point and a little bit less chatting. They were saves from when he was streaming, and was talking about it several times. Yeah, okay, warning, explicit language content in the videos. The reason why he's mentioning that is because I make a big noise about the fact that my channel is a child and granny friendly channel, because I want them to actually learn that you can spend time in places on the internet that are safe so that they can learn how to actually think things through for themselves and then go a bit further. And if there isn't anywhere that they can go to on the internet apart from, I don't know, whatever the modern equivalent is of Club Penguin, they're not actually going to ever learn to think for themselves and how to use the internet in a way that is a useful tool for them, as well as a good safe place for entertainment when it's appropriate. So yes, thank you for the language warning on that, Go Ricky, that's good. He's also one of the readers in Codex, which is that purple and turquoise logo you see over there, or blue and turquoise. I'm not quite sure how it comes out at your end. I'm a member of Codex as well. There are a whole bunch of us, and we all read public domain books. The books are basically, if you can get it on Project Gutenberg, which I will give you a link for. If you can get the book on Project Gutenberg, then it's public domain. That doesn't mean that they have all books that are already public domain there. It just means that if it's there, it is already passed into public domain. Public domain means that the author is no longer collecting copyright fees on it, nor is the publisher. Publishers may publish books that have come out of copyright. They will be making money off those because they're publishing them, but that's usually because of the work they've done to put the cover on and get an illustrator and all sorts of things like this. So as Go Ricky has said, we're pretty close to 20 readers, and there is room for more. So if you are an online public domain book reader on Twitch, talk to Go Ricky about it. But also just keep reading books, and he might visit your channel if he knows that you do read public domain books, and you might get an invitation to join. Anyway, so if you join that Discord server, which I haven't given you the link of yet, the Codex Discord server, you can also find out more about Codex and how it works and all that sort of stuff. The people who are on the Discord server are not just the readers, they are also the listeners. And it's a great bunch of people. We support one another, we encourage one another, we ask questions about things to do with books, especially old books. Some of our readers read books that are still within copyright, but they own the copyright of them, so they are allowed to broadcast them, or they have explicit permission from the author or the publisher to read the book in a public context like Twitch or YouTube or something like that. For me, a big part of the reason why I read public domain books rather than ones that are still in copyright is because, yes, I don't want takedown notices and all that sort of stuff, but I also think that authors have put a lot of work in, and they deserve to be paid for it. And if the author is already dead but the book is still within copyright, then their descendants, their estate, actually, I think it's fair that they actually still get some of the income from those books. And I don't have the income to be able to apply and pay a copyright waiver fee or whatever they call it to be able to perform something that's still within copyright on my channel. It can be done. That's how television and radio actually uses books that are still within copyright, but they have got permission and they have usually had to pay a fee for it. There was a series of books that I was hoping to read for you guys, which I won't be reading for another 15 or 20 years because they are still within copyright, but I will be patient. If I'm still here reading, when they come into public domain, I will be reading them to you. I have the physical copies myself, and I love those books. I don't know if you've ever read any books by Arthur Ransom, but the Swallows and Amazon books, but I grew up reading there. And they were kids having adventures on their own. There were adults, but they were not, apart from Captain Flint, one of the characters in several of the stories. It was the children who were in charge of their adventures. Adults kind of facilitated one or two things like mum giving permission to go sailing and camping overnight and things like that. The lady whose farmhouse they were staying at providing food for them to take with them. But the adventures were the children's adventures. They were in charge of them. They went off and did all sorts of things like that. Yes, it would be wonderful to be able to pay a reasonable fee for books and be able to read them. Some of the publishers are a little bit money hungry. So that's a sad fact, partly because they get to make some money off it as well, not just the author. Usually the publishers make more money than the authors do. Just a by the by thing. I know a lot of authors. Most of them don't get a lot of money. No, and none of us want to bleed for it. So my comment was here, the middle of town. I do better when I look for things to appreciate. Not denying things, just changing perspective. How about you? So I try to put something that's a little bit encouraging or maybe a challenge for myself and stuff on my Instagram channel, but also to remind people that I'm going to be reading. So you get lots of pictures of the cat. His name is Theodore. He's all attitude and lots of fluff. But if you follow my Instagram channel, you'll get to know them. The different sort of things that I do, but also you'll get to know different characters like the cat. And sometimes, occasionally, my husband, when he's doing some wood turning, I'll post some pictures about that sort of thing. All sorts of random stuff. But if it's something that can be encouraging or remind people that I'm reading a book for them, I'll usually do it when there's not too much else that's happening at the time. I'm trying to think if there was something else I wanted to tell you about before I actually get going. I've just remembered that I actually have the ability to highlight a piece of text and show it to you on screen. Just one of those random things I have available on my setup. And yes, I have tested it before and it works. So one of the things we have available here is, I didn't do my 3 tips, did I? I only got to number 2. We'll get to the third one in a minute. One of the things I do here is I actually have some jigsaw puzzles, online jigsaw puzzles queued up so that you guys can play them if you want to. So if you want to do that, ! Jigsaw, but I need to know that you're actually interested in them, because some days the people who are here don't want to do a jigsaw puzzle, like Hugh wasn't well for a week or more and just was not up to concentrating enough to do puzzles. And she was the only one who normally would do puzzles here, so we just didn't put the puzzles up. And they usually show here if we are doing puzzles. So if you are wanting to do a jigsaw puzzle, let me know. Don't use the command yet. Let me know and I'll get it so it's visible, and then you can type in, once it's visible over there, then you can type in either exclamation jigsaw or exclamation puzzle or even exclamation PZ, short for puzzle. And that will bring up the link so that you can actually join in with doing the jigsaw puzzle. But there's no point in putting that up if you're not interested in it. Right, the 3 tips. Jonathan would be upset with me if I didn't give you all the 3 tips. Now, Jonathan's not here today, but he's often here. Jonathan is another person who reads online, and he definitely reads stuff that is public domain. He's not part of Codex, but he's another New Zealander, and he's writing, or he's planning a computer game that is based on a particular period of English history. English and Scottish history, I think it is. Anyway, and it's set during the Tudor period. So he has been reading online on Twitch, as well as occasionally doing some gaming. He has been reading letters, court documents, books that were written at the time from the Tudor period, ones to and from Queen Elizabeth I and all those other people from her time period, and reads them online. Sometimes he'll be working on getting his fluency with the reading up a little bit more. Sometimes it will be gathering information. Often there are words in there that are really strange. And so sometimes it's a collaborative effort to actually figure out how to say a word, but also what it means. It's one of those things that's a quirk for people who are readers, who have done a lot of reading, is they will pick up on a word from reading it many, many times. And they may have never learnt it at school because it's not the sort of word that the teachers used at school. And so they have come up with their own pronunciation for it. So sometimes I will say something in a way that's different to how you say it. And it's not because of my New Zealand accent. It's purely because I have learnt the word from reading it. It's kind of like, is it GIF or is it GIF? You see it written down and your mind says, this is the way I pronounce it, because of your experience of other collections of letters that have a similar structure. So GI can be G and GI can be J. They are both correct. And in fact, for pronunciation of that word, both of those pronunciations are correct. Now, I will usually come up with the way I pronounce something, but every now and then we'll get some odd one that I haven't read before, and so I might make it up on the spot, and I may say it differently later on. It may be because I'm remembering having heard it on TV or in a movie or something. Other times it's because I remember hearing somebody else say it. Yeah, the funny thing with GIF and GIF is the fact that the creator says it's GIF and most of the rest of the world says GIF, and it makes a little bit more sense to most of us, I think, really. This is one of those cases where I think you're wrong, the creator. Anyway, but it's just one of those quirks of the English language, and also things like acronyms and stuff like that. So I've given you tip 1, which is drinks. Tip 2 is snacks. So I've got my cheese and crackers, and I've also got my plastic cheese, which is processed cheese and wrapped in plastic. The family name is plastic cheese. Drinks, snacks, comfort. So this is my reminder. Make sure you have somewhere comfortable to sit, unless you're working and you can't be sitting somewhere comfortable, or you're studying or something like that. If you're listening and doing other things, that's fine. But it's easier to enjoy a story if you are sitting somewhere comfortable. So get yourself somewhere comfortable to sit. I think that's just about it. I didn't actually give Goriki a shout out. No, I did give Goriki a shout out. That was the other thing I was going to do. I was going to tell you to do with Codex. I'm all over the place today. It's been one of those days. If you look below on my hi books, great to have you here. No worries, it's still available as a VOD on Twitch, so you can catch up with it if you want to, or later on in a couple of weeks' time it'll be on YouTube in playlist. and I'll just keep adding them about each one about 2 weeks after I have read the story online. It will then show up on YouTube on my playlist. And I do have a link for YouTube for those who haven't come across it before and are not looking around my About page. If you are looking around my About page, below the main part, which usually has a video window and bits and pieces like that, there's a section that says Codex, and it looks similar to that, but it's got a background of a typewriter and all sorts of things like this. In that bit there's a description of what Codex is about, very loosely, using my words. And then there's links to all of the all of the Twitch channels for the different Codex readers. And you can open up each of those links and experience what the different readers do. Now, a lot of the readers do just chatting and play games and all sorts of things like that as well. There are one or two who just do reading. Technically, I just do reading, but I always do this chat at the beginning anyway. And I usually give a very short chat at the end. And if it's got lots of chapters, I will often chat in the middle. And sometimes I even interrupt myself. Maybe I should go back to calling it just chatting. No, I want it to be a reading thing. But as far as I know, I'm the only one who only reads children's books. Various readers will read children's books, but that's not all they read. So it depends on what you're after. Yay, Q's here. Great to have you here, Q. Just for anyone who wants it, I will actually put up the jigsaw puzzle just because why not? If you want to join in with jigsaw puzzle, type in that command. As I said earlier, this one looks like it's going to be a hard one, by the way. If you hadn't guessed it already, it's a typewriter. Yeah. As I've said, the others will sometimes read children's books, but I'm the only one who specifically reads just children's books. Maybe when I've finished reading all of the public domain children's books that are out there, I'll start reading some other ones as well that aren't children's books. But at the moment, there's still plenty to go. They won't all be to my taste. They won't all be to my liking, but that's okay. We'll still learn from them. We've already discussed that, haven't we? So, yeah. All of that sort of stuff. As you've already seen, I do have my videos up on YouTube. I also have a Twitter and an Instagram account where I do not put videos. I only do pictures on Instagram, and on Twitter I make comments about things and cross-post usually the first picture of a set if I do a set. Otherwise, just a single picture that they automatically cross-post from Instagram over to Twitter. And they are cross-posted in such a way that you can actually see the picture as far as I know. So there you go. I think we're about ready to start reading. I've mentioned Codex. I've mentioned Project Gutenberg. I've mentioned my 3 tips. Jonathan will be proud of me. It's good to have systems in place. I have chat working, so that's good. I've got the jigsaw puzzle working. I've got my book ready to go. I keep feeling like there might be something else I was meant to be doing, and I can't remember what it was. Suggestions? Apart from reading the book, obviously, we are going to do that. I will have a mouthful of water while I'm thinking. I've got this strong feeling that there's something else I was going to say or do as well. Oh, so yeah, don't forget to follow Goriki and have a look at his security videos. Definitely worth it, especially if you're a streamer. You've got to look after your community. They are your community. You have drawn them together, and if you have bots in your on your channel, in your chat, there's lots of horrible things that can happen because of that. One is that they can be stealing people's information. Another one is some of the bots post spam messages, which not everybody is wise enough to filter out mentally and decide, no, that's a spam message. Some people do follow them and get suckered. So, and then on top of that, some people used to think that having a whole lot of bots in your account would help with your viewer numbers. They don't, actually, because Twitch knows that they're bots. so they don't count them. But if you have somebody donate subscriptions, gifts subscriptions to your chat, all of those bots are eligible to receive them, which means it's a real person, someone in your community that you have nurtured who is not receiving that gift subscription. So yeah, look after your community if you're a streamer. Eliminate bots, smash the bots, get out the ban hammer. It's actually really easy if you're on OBS, if you're I use OBS as my broadcast software. If you even if you're streaming from your phone, as long as you can access your chat, you can actually ban. It's just a / as an owner of the channel or as a moderator, it's /ban, BAN, space, and then the copied name of the bot. So there you go. And there's also a website where you can check. It's not always the most up to date, but it has a huge number of bots there. You can check to see if this is a bot or if this is a real person. If they're not in lots and lots of channels, then they're probably a real person or they're only just got started. If they are in thousands of channels, that is not a real person. And it's not doing you any favors because they're not watching, they're not contributing to your community. Rant over. Let's read. Okay, so here we go. And great to have you here, Aunt. Thank you for being here. It's wonderful. And thank you also so much for Aranel for subscribing a couple of days ago. Thank you. And also Tina for resubscribing. I really do appreciate that. It's still a little bit of a novelty for me, actually, having people decide that they want to sort of be committed to it in some way or another. And if you are an Amazon, I don't know if you knew this or not, but if you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, you get one free subscription for Twitch that you can use every month, that you can basically subscribe to someone's Twitch channel, and it doesn't cost you anything extra. So that's one of the benefits of being an Amazon Prime subscriber. I'm not, just because I live in a country where getting expedited package shipping makes no difference. We're so far away from the rest of the world. New Zealand is over 1,000 miles away from any other country of significance. Well, any other country, actually. That's a long way. If you're swimming or rowing, you cannot drive to New Zealand. You have to go on a boat or a plane. And so that means everything that comes to New Zealand as packages is either on a plane or on a ship. And you cannot get next day or same week delivery from Amazon in New Zealand because we don't have an Amazon in New Zealand. It has to be sent from overseas. Anyway, enough. Right. Oh no. So Books is saying, I knew exactly where my copy of Dr. Dolittle was, and then I reorganized the bookshelves, and now I can't find it anymore. Isn't that just what life is like? That is such an accurate depiction of what life, well, for me anyway, life can be like. So I'll get on with reading and then you can enjoy it here. Thankfully, this author writes short chapters, so we can not have to avoid the next chapter because the chapter's too long to fit in. We should be okay. So The Story of Dr. Dolittle by Hugh Lofting. It was published in 1920. It's written by an English author, even though it was first published, from what I gather, in the States. Who knew? Anyway, we are reading the 5th chapter. That is what it is referred to as the 5th chapter, not chapter 5, which is odd. Yes, it is. It does help. You can also block if you have someone who's causing ongoing problems, not just for your particular for your particular stream, but messaging like with whispers and stuff like that. You can also block, but start by banning. They cannot do anything in your chat once they've been banned. It usually takes a few seconds before it comes into act. What I do to check for them is I go to this website. I'll actually give you the link for it since you're asking. And thank you for asking these sort of questions. It really is actually worth it. And I don't have a problem with people who are not streamers actually knowing all this stuff, because it means that you have an understanding and an appreciation of the efforts that go into keeping the place safe for you. Yes, there you go. That's a good point that Goriki makes. The more that an account gets banned, it flags to Twitch and they look. They're molasses, but they do look. So the reference to molasses, slow as molasses. So Twitch takes a while before it overall removes a user or a username from their services. But if you ban a user and other people also ban that user, then that signal gets through to Twitch sooner, so they are removed from the system. If you ban them, they will not be able to chat in your channel. There you go. I don't know if it means, and it also means they can't sit in your channel. They can't watch your channel, because otherwise they would still be able to get the information, but they're not able to get the information. So, what else? I think that was something else. Tried the Discord link before and it wasn't valid. How long ago did you try the Discord link? Happy? Is this my one or is this the Codex one? I'll just wait a moment and give you a chance to answer that question. And then I can answer the question for you, your actual question. So books, brews and booze, and also Goriki actually know each other through Codex in various contexts. You will find that a lot of our Codex readers do play games and stuff as well. They don't just read books. So if you want something else to do, like watching a game, then that's cool. Codex one should have worked. I'm not too sure about that. I'm going to let Goriki check that, because he can access what my own commands are. It may be that it's expired and it needs redoing. There will be on both my one and the Codex one a system where you have to agree to abide by the rules that are there, just so you know. There was something else to do with that I was going to say. Can't remember. I've already told you, if Goriki offers to be a mod for you, say yes. Seriously. And listen to what he says. He knows what he's talking about. And he will often pick up on a user that is a bot before the Twitch Insights site, which I gave you the link for just before, which is one of the places I check. He recognizes from the behaviors of the bot that it is a bot, before the Twitch viewer list bots checking site actually has even recognized them. So there you go. Yeah, I'm going to leave Goriki to sort out whether or not the Discord for the link for the Discord for Codex works or not, because I think I need to read, because oh my goodness, it's nearly 10 to 4 and that means I've been talking for more than three quarters of an hour without actually reading yet. Sorry. We will actually get onto it. Oh yes, and I am going to be continuing to try and put chapter markers in my YouTube videos so that people who want to just get the story get to skip the first chat, because otherwise they start watching and it's like 2 minutes in, oh my goodness, she's still talking and I've heard all this before, and so they stop watching. If they know that it's a chat for a certain amount of time, they will sometimes actually stay for longer. Sometimes they'll actually listen to all that because they know it is actually going to get to the reading stage. Have you ever watched a YouTube video and someone says, I'm going to tell you all about this, and it's a 20-minute video and they tell you about it for 2 minutes before the end, but sort of like 2/3, 3/4 of the way through, and then after they've told you for 2 minutes about what it was they were going to tell you about, they then pump all of their social media channels and how you can tip them and donate to them and all these other things. Yeah, chat skippers are missing out. I do have friends. I've made friends online. I do have friends that context actually does make sense. I do have friends who watch the stories on YouTube just because of the time of day that I read and when they are able to. Both of the partners are nurses and they have small children, and we got to know each other through another YouTuber's channel, and that's their main way of actually keeping up with what's going on, is they'll actually watch my YouTube videos when they have time off work, because they have some pretty long shift hours and things like that. Anyway, so we'll go back to actually reading, I think. Yes, and I think they're missing out too, which is why I haven't stopped doing the chat beforehand. I have had somebody say, oh, well, maybe you should just not do the chat. And it's kind of like, for me, it gets me in mind of where we're going and what we're doing with the story. And it does mean that when we get to reading the story, before I get so immersed in the story that I can't get distracted, because sometimes that does happen, not often, but sometimes. If there's stuff when I'm reading that I have experience of, or I know about it from my past reading as a kid, or anything else like that, I will actually often interrupt a story to explain something, because I'm aware that a lot of people don't have the same range of experience. They don't know what how a butter churner works, or a cream separator, or things like that, which may not seem relevant here, but sometimes in stories you'll get something that'll be mentioned which is actually relevant. And it may be historic, it may be old-fashioned, it may not be something that's in use anymore, but a lot of that sort of stuff, equipment things, we still had around the property when I was growing up, because the land had once been a farm, it was still there, it was still in the family. And so there's a lot of stuff which, if I share that information, then other people can understand more of what they read themselves and experience themselves in other contexts too, not just in the story that I'm reading. Yeah, as Book says, agreed. If I didn't want a streamer's thoughts, I'd just read the book for myself. Absolutely. Or if it's something that's available as an audio book from the library, you'd get that. And then you get this beautiful, crisp narration of the book. Sometimes you get voices as well. Instead of just a narrator, they will actually do voices. You will not have errors in it. It will be beautifully modulated voice with the sound levels set so it's nice and comfortable. It's lovely. I listen to audiobooks often. But the thing that's fun with this is because it is live, it's because I'm responding to you guys in chat, but also I'm responding to the book, my own memories, things like that. And it's a great way to actually just sort of expand our minds and have a broader experience and have some fun too. So yeah, the people on YouTube do miss out on that, but I do give them a dig every now and then and say, look, you people on YouTube, they're going to hear this, by the way. Anybody on YouTube, you're going to hear this. You're going to hear that you're missing out on all the fun that we have in chat. You'll be missing out on the jigsaw puzzles that we do when I'm streaming. So see if you can actually make it to one of my live streams. If you follow on YouTube, if you find there is a link for my Twitch channel, follow that, and it will show you on the schedule page on my Twitch channel what time I will next be live on stream. And it will tell you in your time zone, not mine. So it's all very well me saying I read 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 3 p.m. New Zealand time, but you've got to do the maths and figure out when that is for you. Some people are great at that and some people aren't. Or you've got to find a way to phrase that in Google so that it gives you an easy answer that's correct for now, not for when it's summertime for me and wintertime for you. But if you actually do it through Twitch's schedule page, because I have my information there, you will actually see when I'm going to be live for you. And just a schedule thing, I will not be reading on Monday because I have to take my father down to the dentist, and my father is in his 80s. He drives locally, but he doesn't like driving on the motorway. So I won't be here on Monday. I'm really, really sorry. And I will hopefully actually post something about that on Monday so people know and they're not going to get too disappointed. Sorry about that. Yeah, I have found the Twitch community to be a great bunch of people. There are streamers I watch who play games that I will never ever play in my life. I do not have the reaction times. I'm not into, for my own enjoyment, I'm not into playing shooting games. I don't have the skills. But also it just doesn't resonate for me. But there are Twitch streamers who I will regularly watch their streams, and that is the majority of what they play because of the community that they have developed. And community is, in large part, a reflection of who you are and the people that are drawn to be involved with where you are. So I have a great community here. I love the people who come here and start chatting and play puzzles and make comments and all sorts of things like that. We see each other around other parts of the internet too. I think you're an awesome bunch. So let's get on with reading instead of patting each other on the back, shall we? Okay, The Story of Dr. Dolittle by Hugh Lofting. We are reading the 5th chapter, The Great Journey. And I actually forgot what that first letter was. Sorry, the current book has little illustrated letters for the first word of a chapter, for the initial letter of the first word of the chapter. And is it now or is it how? And I can't read far enough ahead to be able to auto-correct it in my own brain, so I'm cheating and looking at the online version of the book over here on my other browser window, on my other monitor. So here we go. Now for 6 whole weeks they went sailing on and on over the rolling sea, following the swallow who flew before the ship to show them the way, because they had actually had the swallow telling them that they had been to Africa so many times that they didn't need to have somebody show them how to get there. They would show them how to get there. At night she carried a tiny lantern so that they could not miss her in the dark, and the people on the other ships that passed said that the light must be a shooting star, because it's moving. As they sailed further and further into the south, it got warmer and warmer. Polynesia was the parrot, wasn't it? I have a cheat sheet here, cheat sheet page with characters. Yes, here you go. And I'll actually give you the list, because you might have to help me remember along the way. So this is the link to a page. Yes, it's got a MIDI file on it, which, depending on your browser, may offer to be downloaded for you. You can just decline that. The page I've just given you in the chat is a list of the different characters in the Dr. Dolittle books. So it's probably got more than just the ones in this particular book. But if you get stuck, you can have a look at that, or you can remind me what's going on if we need it. Right, carrying on. As they sailed further and further into the south, it got warmer and warmer. Polynesia, Chi-Chi, and the crocodile enjoyed the hot sun no end. Chi-Chi is the monkey, that's right. Enjoyed the hot sun no end, because they come from warmer climates, don't they? They ran about laughing and looking over the side of the ship to see if they could see Africa yet. But the pig and the dog and the owl, Tutu, could do nothing in such weather, but sat at the end of the ship in the shade of a big barrel with their tongues hanging out and drinking lemonade. Dab Dab the duck used to keep herself cool by jumping into the sea and swimming behind the ship, and every once in a while, when the top of her head got too hot, she would dive under the ship and come up on the other side. In this way, too, she used to catch herrings. On Tuesdays and Fridays, when everybody on the boat ate fish to make the beef last longer. Scheduled day for eating fish, so that you don't have to use as much of your meat. When they got near to the equator, they saw some flying fish come towards them, and the fish asked the parrot if this was Dr. Dolittle's ship. Now, I'm sorry, I am auto-correcting. It says here flying fishes. And the fishes asked the parrot. And where I grew up in New Zealand, fish is plural. Unless you're talking about a collection of species, then it's fishes. Otherwise, it's fish, singular or plural. And I'm going to say it that way. And here I will give you my say command again so that you can go like, okay, yeah, whatever. Right. When they got near to the equator, they saw some flying fish coming towards them, and the fish asked the parrot if this was Dr. Dolittle's ship. When she told them it was, they said they were glad because the monkeys in Africa were getting worried that he would never come. Polynesia asked them how many miles they had yet to go, and the flying fish said it was only 55 miles now to the coast of Africa. And another time, A whole school of porpoises came dancing through the waves, and they too asked Polynesia if this was the ship of the famous doctor. And when they heard that it was, they asked the parrot if the doctor wanted anything for his journey. And Polynesia says, "Yes, we have run short of onions." What a thing to run short of for an animal to ask for. "There's an island not far from here," said the porpoises, "where the wild onions grow tall and strong. Keep straight on. We will get some and catch up to you." There you go. Usually wild onions means it's a plant that has an onion flavour and smell, and it's probably more like what we would call a spring onion, or some people call them scallions, that sort of thing, because they grow easily. They don't need to be in highly cultivated soil for the actual onion itself to bulb out. Did you know that that's how onions grow? They're just a shoot, and then after they've been growing for long enough, the shoot starts to go like this and get bigger and bigger in the middle. Yeah, kind of like chives, but sometimes they will actually be wild onions. Sometimes they'll be a bit bigger than that. Depends on where you are. There's something that we refer to as wild chives in my part of New Zealand, and it's actually just a weed that grows easily, and it smells of garlic. No, we call it wild garlic, I think. That's what it is, yeah. It doesn't have a bulb on the bottom of it, but it's the same family. Definitely the same family. And also my Chinese in-laws, my sister-in-law is Chinese. Her parents have a veggie garden, and they grow all sorts of things in it that are Chinese vegetables, and they have something that they use often, and it's a green onion that we would use like a spring onion, but it's got a more garlicky flavour that's kind of like a specially cultivated version of wild garlic, rather than it just being the wild stuff that we get. Anyway, enough of that. So the onions, where the wild onions grow tall and strong, keep straight on. We will get some and catch up to you. So the porpoises dashed away through the sea, and very soon the parrot saw them again, coming up behind, dragging the onions through the waves in big nets made of seaweed. The next evening, as the sun was going down, the doctor said, "Get me the telescope, Chi-Chi. Our journey is nearly ended. Very soon we should be able to see the shores of Africa." And then, about half an hour later, sure enough, they thought they could see something in front. It might be land. But it began getting darker and darker, and they couldn't be sure. Then a great storm came up with thunder and lightning. The wind howled, the rain came down in torrents, and the waves got so high they splashed right over the boat. Presently there was a big bang. The ship stopped and rolled over on its side. "What happened?" asked the doctor, coming up from downstairs. "I can tell you what happened. As a boatie, I know exactly what happened." "I'm not sure," said the parrot, "but I think we're shipwrecked. Tell the duck to get out and see." So Dab-Dab dived right down under the waves, and when she came up, she said they had struck a rock. There was a big hole in the bottom of the ship. The water was coming in, and they were sinking fast. Oh dear, this is a borrowed ship. Oh no. They don't even own this boat, they've borrowed it. "We must have run into Africa," said the doctor. Here you go, I've got a picture for this. "We must have run into Africa." And I don't think the illustrator is someone who is quite as familiar with the book as the author, because that rock is sticking up a long way. There's the boat, the ship, starting to lean over because it's damaged. And here's the rest of some land over here. It can be quite frightening when you hit something and you're in a boat, especially a sailing boat. Do not want to do that, seriously. Carrying on. "Dear me, dear me. Well, we must swim to land," said the doctor. But Chi-Chi and Gub-Gub did not know how to swim. Chi-Chi's the monkey, remember, and Gub-Gub is the pig. I've got this over here, character cheat sheet. "Get the rope," said Polynesia. "I told you it would come in handy. Where's that duck? Come here, Dab-Dab. Take this end of the rope, fly to the shore and tie it onto a palm tree, and we'll hold the other end on the ship here. Then those that can't swim must climb along the rope till they reach the land. That is what you call a lifeline." So they all got safely to the shore, some swimming, some flying, and those that climbed along the rope brought the doctor's trunk and handbag, like briefcase type thing, with them. Very definitely children's fantasy. But the ship was no good any more, with the big hole in the bottom, and presently the rough sea beat it to pieces on the rocks, and the timbers floated away. Then they all took shelter in a nice dry cave they found high up in the cliffs, till the storm was over. When the sun came out the next morning, they went down to the sandy beach to dry themselves. "Dear old Africa," said Polynesia. "It's good to get back. Just think, it'll be 169 years tomorrow since I was here." And 69 years, sorry. It'll be 169 years tomorrow since I was here, and it hasn't changed a bit. Same old palm trees, same old red earth, same old black ants. There's no place like home. And the others noticed she had tears in her eyes. She was so pleased to see her country once again. Then the doctor missed his high hat, for it had been blown into the sea during the storm. I will be right back. I am not going to put the be right back screen on because I will be less than a minute if I can do it, because I want to show you what a real high hat is, not a drum high hat either. Yeah, definitely a better way, go on a plank floating. Depends on the direction the wind's blowing, if it's blowing away from shore or back, but just stay there, I'll get this high hat for you. It's a little bit big on me because it's a second-hand one. It's a real one. Got it for my son. It's had a bit of a hard life. It's a bit dented, but this is a high hat. It's what we would call a top hat, and it would have sat like that. You usually keep it straight, but not everybody did. But it's big enough that I can put it on over my ears. My cat's ears, not my own ears. Right, carrying on. And he's got another one. It's a bit bigger than that one because that one's too small for him. It sits up here on top of his head. He's got another one that's a dark burgundy colour. It's gorgeous. We've got a friend who actually makes hats, traditional hats, and I commissioned him to make a hat for him. So that was his wonderful, totally surprising Christmas present. And I'll show it to you one other time. Anyway, we're carrying on now. The doctor missed his high hat, for it had been blown into the sea during the storm. So Dab went out to look for it, and presently she saw it, a long way off, floating on the water like a toy boat. When she flew down to get it, she found that one of the white mice, very frightened, was sitting inside it. "What are you doing here?" asked the duck. "You were told to stay behind in Puddleby." That's Puddleby on the Marsh, which is an imaginary place that is just behind the sea coast on the south of England, probably in Kent. There's a lot of kids' books that are set in Kent. I think there are a lot of authors who spent quite a bit of time in Kent. It's not so far to get to London if you need to. Anyway, "I didn't want to get left behind," said the mouse. "I wanted to see what Africa was like. I have relatives there, so I hid in the baggage and was brought onto the ship with the hardtack." That's the ship's biscuits, which I've shown you pictures of. I don't need to take time with that today. "And when the ship sank, I was terribly frightened because I cannot swim far. I swam as long as I could, but I soon got all exhausted and thought I was going to sink. And then, just at that moment, the old man's hat came floating by, and I got into it because I did not want to be drowned." So the duck took up the hat with the mouse in it and brought it to the doctor on the shore, and they all gathered round to have a look. I'm just going to see if this is the right place for this picture. There you go. There's Dab flying in to grab the hat and discovering the mouse is in it. Apart from the fact that it's purely imaginary, it would be very unlikely that Dab would be able to find it, because in real life, when there is a shipwreck, it's very, very hard when you're over the water or near the water to actually see things in the sea, because most things are way smaller than the actual sea that you're looking at. And your brain does not comprehend the scale of things to be able to see them. I've seen photos of my husband's life raft in the middle of the sea, taken by our New Zealand Air Force, a photograph that they took. And you can just because you know what you're looking for, you can see this tiny bright orange speck in the middle of this scenery of blue waves. But the only reason they found him was, one, he had the special safety gear, radio beacon that transmits location, and then the staff, the crew on the aeroplane, are trained in search and rescue at sea. That's one of the big jobs that the New Zealand Air Force do, is that they spend a lot of time out doing search and rescue missions for people who are on boats, on rafts, all sorts of things, looking for shipwrecked people and looking for people who are still on their boat, but the boat's gone missing because it ran out of fuel or whatever else. And we help a lot of the smaller island nations that are our northern neighbours in the same way, because they don't have a big enough country to be able to have that sort of facility themselves. We'll carry on reading. So yeah, the fact that Dab actually found the hat was quite some feat. They all gathered round to have a look. "That's what you call a stowaway," said the parrot. Yes, the mouse had been a stowaway. Presently, when they were looking for a place in the trunk where the white mouse could travel comfortably, the monkey, Chi-Chi, suddenly said, "Shh! I hear footsteps in the jungle." They all stopped talking and listened, and soon a black man came down out of the woods and asked them what they were doing there. "My name is John Dolittle, M.D., said the doctor. "I have been asked to come to Africa to cure the monkeys who are sick." "You must all come before the king," said the black man. "What king?" asked the doctor, who didn't want to waste any time. "The king of the Jolliginki." I think that's how you say it. Jolly, Jolliginki. Jolliginki, the man answered. "All these lands belong to him, and all strangers must be brought before him. Follow me." So they gathered up their baggage and went off, following the man through the jungle. Now, I'm guessing that this next section of the book is where the next few chapters, maybe where we get a little bit of racist undertones coming in. Let's just forgive the author for having an attitude that is no longer acceptable. I will have another mouthful of my coffee, and I may actually have some cheese, because we are in a chapter break. So if you didn't get yourself drinks and snacks and comfortable seats before I started, now's your time. Quick. I won't talk anywhere near as long as I did at the beginning, so you've got a minute or two. If you need to go to the loo, now's the time. Pit stop time. While that's all happening, and this is my chatting time, I'm just going to see if I can find you the link that talks about my husband's shipwreck. And yes, my keyboard is very loud. There's actually a video of it too. Let's see which one of these. There's two articles on this on our local New Zealand news website. It's probably basically the same content. No, this one's the better one. Just see if I can get the correct version of this. No, I have to do it with all the long letters after the end. Right, so here it is. Here's an article. It has there is a little short, it looks like a video clip, but it's not. It's just Phil talking on the phone with a picture shown. There's a link to the article about Phil and the boat. Phil's my husband, and the boat and the shipwreck. And there's a photo in the article which shows a bright orange life raft and a line coming out from behind it. That's a rope that you leave trailing in the water so that if you fall out of the life raft, you can possibly grab it and get back in. That's what it's for. And it also helps to slow the life raft down a bit, so it's a little bit more stable. That photograph is heavily zoomed in, very heavily zoomed in. That's nothing like what it looked like to the Air Force guys, when the Air Force crew, when they were coming through to find him. But there you go. That's a little bit more about the family background, I suppose. So you're most welcome to have a look at that if you wish. And don't forget, I am chatting like this to give you time to go and get your drinks and your snacks, because you probably didn't get them ready beforehand. And if you really, really, really must, hurry and go to the loo. And then there's also a video interview kind of thing that's 4.5 minutes, which you have to ask me for. You have to either find me on Twitter and ask for this particular link, or you have to join our Discord server and ask for this particular link. This is the one of the video where he was interviewed by one of our TV programs to ask about what happened and what it was like and how he survived. Yeah, there was some really bad weather. We'd just had 4 months on this tiny little wooden sailing boat up in the island nation of Vanuatu, and he was sailing home. I flew home, and he went through a storm, and because it's an old boat and the storm actually changed direction, so the waves kept on going in the same direction, but the boat was sailing following the wind, not the waves. She came down off the back of a wave several times harder than she should have, and then sank. So that's what that's about. Anyway, so we'll get back to reading now. You've had enough time. I'm not going to give you more. I don't care how hard you beg. Just joking. Right. Poor boat. Absolutely. We no longer have a boat. Every now and then one of us will want to find something which was on the boat. We were using whatever the item was when we were on the boat up in Vanuatu, and then we'll go, where's such and such? Oh, that's right, it's on the boat. So it's kind of a bit of sad humour about the fact that we don't have the boat anymore, but there are things missing because they're still on the boat. They are. No, there was no point in having insurance. There are several factors, one of which is that for normal boats, modern boats, if you are sailing overseas rather than within 20 miles of land, within 10 years, you could have bought yourself a whole new boat, brand new, with how much it has cost you to insure it. On top of that, if the boat is old, which this one was, it was 45 years old, and if it is wooden, then it's almost impossible to get insurance. And so therefore it's just like you take the risks, and you also do things logically, do things sensibly. You have already spent time sailing, equipping it, making sure that you have all the right equipment on board, but also you have practiced doing certain things. Phil, my husband, did a lifeboat training course before he went up to the islands, because it's a very, very wise thing to do if you get the opportunity to. As a New Zealander, he was required to do it before the customs and immigration would release him to actually sail out of the country. He could have just sort of escaped if he wanted to, but it wasn't going to get him any safer if he just decided to go anyway. But in the course that they do, they talk about all the things the sort of things that can happen, but they also talk about this is what you have to do. If you're in this situation, this is what you have to think about. So you have to make sure that you eat something long before you think you need to eat something once you're in the life raft. When you get into the life raft, one of the first things you should do is take an anti-seasickness tablet or capsule, which usually they're equipped with that sort of thing, because you might be used to being on your boat and you might never get seasick on your boat, but when you're in a life raft and it's this tiny little rubber thing, well, plastic thing, and it's going up and down on waves, it moves completely different to a normal boat. And almost everybody, if they don't take something for it, will get seasick. Just the facts of life. So the course is run by people who have actually been in life raft situations before, and then they actually spend time in a giant swimming pool that's a wave pool with a life raft, practicing things in teams and on their own, wearing blindfolds, so it's as if you were in the middle of the night and it's dark, and you have to complete the course, you have to get all of the team that you're practicing with, even though they're not the people you're going to be sailing with, you have to get all of the people that you've been training with in your group, the smaller group, have to, with your blindfolds on, you have to find each other in the water in this pool, which has these huge waves going on the whole time. You have to find each other and get all of you into the life raft. And if you don't qualify. But you also realize I really need to put a hang of a lot more practice into being able to stay afloat and all this sort of stuff. Hi, Salties, good to have you here. So that's the end of today's boat story from my half of it. Yeah, and he was rescued. He came back home safely. We no longer have the boat. It's moored under 1.5 kilometres of water off Norfolk Island in the South Pacific, if anyone needs to find it. But you won't be able to get to it because it's too far down. Anyway, the one positive out of it was the fact that the boat has not sat on a mooring unused and rotted and sunk. I'd much rather the boat actually sort of went out being used and loved rather than actually just be sadly dying slowly of rot. Anyway, we'll get on with the story. So we are reading the story of Dr. Dolittle by Hugh Lofting, and this is the 6th chapter called Polynesia and the King. Now, Polynesia's the parrot, if you are not familiar with this story and you've just arrived. So that's why I'm giving you that information. And I shall carry on with reading. Once the particular puzzle that we're doing, which is seems to be a very hard one. I should have thought about that when I chose how many pieces. If we do finish it and people still want another puzzle, I can do one that's not as hard as that. Okay? Doesn't have to be hard. Right. The 6th chapter, Polynesia and the King. When they had gone a little way through the thick forest, they came to a wide, clear space, and they saw the king's palace, which was made of mud. This was where the king lived with his queen, Ermintrude, and their son, Prince Bumpo. Naming in this story. The prince was away fishing for salmon in the river. Salmon. Okay. I didn't know salmon were in Africa, apart from that movie, Fishing for Salmon in the Yemen. Anyway, carrying on. The prince was away fishing for salmon in the river, but the king and queen were sitting under an umbrella before the palace door, and Queen Ermintrude was asleep. Just check what the next one was. Yes, here we go, because the illustrations are coming after the text. So here they are. There's the king and the queen. She's asleep. He's wide awake. And I would suggest that the illustration style is what used to be called grotesque. So it's not realism, it's distorted faces and bodies and all that sort of stuff. Don't expect them to be full of realism. Sadly, that's not the style. Not my favourite style of illustration, unlike some of the ones we've had in our other books. Queen Ermintrude was asleep. When the doctor had come up to the palace, the king asked him about his business. And the doctor told him why he had come to Africa. "You may not travel through my lands," said the king. "Many years ago, a white man came to these shores, and I was very kind to him. But after he had dug holes in the ground to get the gold and killed all the elephants to get their ivory tusks, he went away secretly in his ship without so much as saying thank you. Never again shall a white man travel through the lands of Joliginki." I think that's quite fair, actually. Then the king turned to some of the black men who were standing near and said, "Take away this medicine man with all his animals and lock them up in my strongest prison." So 6 of the black men led the doctor and all his pets away and shut them up in a stone dungeon. The dungeon had only one little window high up in the wall with bars in it, and the door was strong and thick. Then they all grew very sad, and Gub Gub the pig began to cry, but Chee Chee said he would spank him if he didn't stop that horrible noise, and he kept quiet. "Are we all right here? Are we all here?" asked the doctor, after he'd got used to the dim light. "Yes, I think so," said the duck, and it started to count them. So I think the duck was the one who did the accounting for their house when they were living in England. "Where's Polynesia?" asked the crocodile. "She isn't here." Polynesia's the parrot, remember? "Are you sure?" said the doctor. "Look again. Polynesia, Polynesia, where are you?" "I suppose she escaped," grumbled the crocodile. "Well, that's just like her, sneaked off into the jungle as soon as her friends got into trouble." I don't think that's what's happening." "I'm not that kind of bird," said the parrot, climbing out of the pocket in the tail of the doctor's coat. "You see, I'm small enough to get through the bars of the window, and I was afraid they would put me in a cage instead." Sensible. "So while the king was busy talking, I hid in the doctor's pocket, and here I am. That's what you call a ruse," she said, smoothing down her feathers with her beak. "Good gracious," cried the doctor. "You're lucky I didn't sit on you." So the doctor has a tail coat. So that means it's, white tie, top hat and tails. That's saying it's from a song. A tail coat is the ones where it has the bit that comes down at the back that's split in the middle. And sometimes people would actually have a little pocket in one of the tails or both of the tails. And obviously in this situation, the doctor did. I don't know why. "Now listen," said Polynesia. "Tonight, as soon as it gets dark, I'm going to creep through the bars of that window and fly over to the palace, and then, you'll see, I'll soon find a way to make the king let us all out of prison." "Oh, what can you do?" said Gub Gub, turning up his nose, and began to cry again. "You're only a bird." "Quite true," said the parrot, "but do not forget that although I am only a bird, I can talk like a man. And I know these people." And I'm not going to use the word that was used in the story here because black people is bad enough because that's not the way we refer to them in New Zealand. But if I actually draw on my South African background, it's not so bad because there's blacks and there's whites and there's colours, and that's just the way it is. But the word that he used here was not appropriate, so I won't use it. So that night, when the moon was shining through the palm trees and all the king's men were asleep, the parrot slipped out through the bars of the prison and flew across to the palace. The pantry window had been broken by a tennis ball the week before, and Polynesia popped in through the hole in the glass. She heard Prince Bumpo snoring in his bedroom at the back of the palace. Then she tiptoed up the stairs till she came to the king's bedroom. She opened the door gently and peeped in. The Queen was away at a dance that night at her cousin's, but the king was in bed, fast asleep. Polynesia crept in very softly and got under the bed. Then she coughed, just the way Dr. Dolittle used to cough. Polynesia could mimic anyone. The king opened his eyes and said sleepily, "Is that you, Ermintrude?" He thought it was the Queen come back from the dance. Then the parrot coughed again, loud like a man, and the king sat up, wide awake, and said, "Who's that?" "I am Dr. Dolittle," said the parrot, just the way the doctor would have said it. "What are you doing in my bedroom?" cried the king. "How dare you get out of prison? Where are you? I don't see you." And we do have another picture here, and I'm going to give it to you. Some of the books, the pictures come fast. So there's the king in the bed. There's the parrot under the bed, sounding like Dr. Dolittle. "Who's that?" said the king. We'll possibly need some more pictures before we go too much further. "What are you doing in my bedroom?" cried the king. "How dare you get out of prison? Where are you? I don't see you." But the parrot just laughed, a long, deep, jolly laugh, just like the doctor's. "Stop laughing and come here at once so I can see you," said the king. Foolish king, answered Polynesia. Have you forgotten that you are talking to John Dolittle, MD, the most wonderful man on earth? Of course you cannot see me. I have made myself invisible. There is nothing I cannot do. Now listen, I have come here tonight to warn you. If you don't let me and my animals travel through your kingdom, I will make you and all your people sick like the monkeys. For I can make people well, and I can make people ill just by raising my little finger. Send your soldiers at once to open the dungeon door, or you shall have mumps before the morning sun has risen on the hills of Jolliginki. Mumps is a disease which causes swelling of the throat and a very, very sore throat and a whole lot of complications if you're an adult, especially if you're a man. Not a pleasant sickness to have. Usually it's not life-threatening, but you kind of wish it was almost, because it is so uncomfortable. Very, very painful. Your whole neck and your throat are sore. Your glands are swollen. Oh, it's horrible. Not something you want. So obviously the king has heard of mumps, I would guess. Then the king began to tremble and was very much afraid. Doctor, he cried, it shall be as you say. Do not raise your little finger, please. And he jumped out of bed and ran to tell the soldiers to open the prison door. As soon as he was gone, Polynesia crept downstairs and left the palace by the pantry window. But the queen, who was just letting herself in at the back door with a latch key, saw the parrot getting out through the broken glass. And when the king came back to bed, she told him what she had seen. Then the king understood that he had been tricked, and he was dreadfully angry. He hurried back to the prison at once, but he was too late. The door stood open. The dungeon was empty. The doctor and all his animals were gone. That's the end of that chapter. And normally, if I was reading one of the other books, I would stop there because of the length of the chapters are too long for me to be able to keep going. But I'm not going to today. I'm going to actually read you the next one. It's not quite so long, especially if I don't interrupt myself so much. Here we go. The Story of Dr. Dolittle by Hugh Lofting. This is the 7th chapter, The Bridge of Apes. Excuse me. Queen Ermintrude had never in her life seen her husband so terrible as he got that night. He gnashed his teeth with rage. He called everybody a fool. He threw his toothbrush at the palace cat. He rushed round in his nightshirt and woke up all his army and sent them into the jungle to catch the doctor. Then he made all his servants go too, his cooks and his gardeners and his barber, that's the man who cuts his hair, and Prince Bumpo's tutor. Even the queen, who was tired from dancing in a pair of tight shoes, was packed off to help the soldiers in their search. He's really upset. Oh dear. I will actually see if I can get the next picture ready. Sorry. And the one after that, because I think there are a couple in this next chapter. And then I shall carry on with reading. And the last one for now, because I'd rather have more than less of them. Right, carrying on. I'm hoping that that's the right set of pictures. I will just check. Sorry. Family have got back. So I will carry on reading, and then I shall give you... Shall I give you some homework? No, I don't think I'll give you any homework. Unless you want to join our Discord server. You can actually get involved with suggesting stories there and asking questions. And if you find anything that you think is particularly interesting or relevant for the story, you can share it there. And also that's the place you can ask me for that link for the video about my husband sinking in the boat sinking. he didn't sink. Right. So the queen, even the queen who was tired from dancing in a pair of tight shoes, was packed off to help the soldiers in their search. All this time the doctor and his animals were running through the forest towards the land of the monkeys as fast as they could go. Gub Gub, with his short legs, soon got tired, and the doctor had to carry him, so that's the pig, which made it pretty hard when they had the trunk and the handbag with them as well. Oh dear. The king of the Jolliginki thought it would be easy for his army to find them, because the doctor was in a strange land and would not know his way. But he was wrong, because the monkey, Chi-Chi, knew all the paths through the jungle better even than the king's men did. That makes sense. And he led the doctor and his pets to the very thickest part of the forest, a place where no man had ever been before, and he hid them all in a big hollow tree between high rocks. "We had better wait here," said Chi-Chi, "till the soldiers have gone back to bed. Then we can go on into the land of monkeys." So there they stayed the whole night through. They often heard the king's men searching and talking in the jungle round about, but they were quite safe, for no one knew of that hiding place but Chi-Chi, not even the other monkeys. There you go. Oh, that's unusual, being able to actually have somewhere that's that exclusive. Right. At last, when daylight began to come through the thick leaves overhead, they heard Queen Ermintrude saying in a very tired voice that it was no use looking any more, that they might as well go back and get some sleep. As soon as the soldiers had all gone home, Chi-Chi brought the doctor and his animals out of the hiding place, and they set off for the land of the monkeys. It was a long, long way, and they often got very tired, especially Gub Gub. Yay, the puzzle's done, the puzzle's done. Well done, you all. I'll carry on with reading, and I'll just turn that off for now, because we don't really need it there anymore. I won't put another one up. Yeah, that's a really hard puzzle. Oh, you were doing it on a mobile phone. Oh my goodness. Sorry about that. I kept thinking that you like having more pieces in the puzzle, so I actually bumped it up from 104 up to 144 or something, which was nearer to what we've had the last few times, forgetting about the fact that it was actually quite a hard one, because it's got so many things that look very similar, but well done. Anyway. Just trying to get the right place of where we are. At last, when daylight had begun to come through the thick leaves overhead, they heard Queen Ermintrude saying in a very tired voice that it was no use looking any more, that they might as well go back and get some sleep. As soon as the soldiers had all gone home, Chi-Chi brought the doctor and his animals out of the hiding place, and they set off for the land of the monkeys. It was a long, long way, and they often got very tired, especially Gub Gub, but when he cried, they gave him milk out of the coconuts, which he was very fond of. They always had plenty to eat and drink, because Chi-Chi and Polynesia knew all the different kinds of fruit and vegetables that grow in the jungle and where to find them, like dates and figs and ground nuts, that's what we call peanuts, and ginger and yams. They used to make their lemonade out of the juice of wild oranges, sweetened with honey, which they'd got from the bees' nests in hollow trees. No matter what it was they asked for, Chi-Chi and Polynesia always seemed to be able to get it for them, or something like it. They even got the doctor some tobacco one day, when he had finished what he had brought with him and wanted to smoke. At night they slept in tents made of palm leaves on thick, soft beds of dried grass, and after a while they got used to walking such a lot and did not get so tired, and enjoyed the life of travel very much. But they were always glad when the night came and they stopped for their resting time. Then the doctor used to make a little fire of sticks, and after they had had their supper, they would sit around it in a ring, listening to Polynesia sing songs about the sea, or to Chi-Chi telling stories of the jungle, and many of the tales that Chi-Chi told were very interesting. Because although the monkeys had no history books of their own before Dr. Dolittle came to write them for them, they remembered everything that happens by telling stories to their children. And Chi-Chi spoke of many things his grandmother had told him, tales of long, long, long ago, before Noah and the flood, of the days when men dressed in bearskins and lived in holes in the rock and ate their mutton raw, because they did not know what cooking was, having never seen a fire. And he told him the great mammoths and the lizards as long as a train that wandered over the mountains in those times, nibbling from the treetops. That'll be the dinosaurs. And often they got so interested listening that when he had finished, they found their fire had gone right out and they had to scurry round to get more sticks and build a new one. Now that oral storytelling tradition is how many people from many other cultures, such as up in the islands, have, long before they had written language in their own usage, how they were able to pass on their histories and their backgrounds to their children. And a lot of those places where that is the normal way of passing on information, the information doesn't change that much. In our culture, where everything has to be written down, otherwise it changes a lot every time someone says it. It's what we used to call, it's like the game that we used to call Chinese whispers. I don't know why it was Chinese, but just probably because it was not understandable to us. Somebody says something and then somebody else, the person who heard it, passes it on to the next person, what they think they heard, because it's whispered in your ear, and it gets passed on and passed on and passed on. It goes right round everybody and comes back to the first person, who then says how it arrived, what they were told, and also says what they started with, and they are nothing like each other. That's how oral storytelling traditions in cultures like the normal European culture in New Zealand tend to work. The whispers game, also known as telephone. Yes, telephone, that's right. But in cultures where oral tradition is normal for passing on histories and genealogies, that's this person is the father of that person, blah, 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 the information doesn't change anywhere near as much, because there is a lot of importance in what is being passed on. So therefore you don't take liberties with it. You pass on what you actually heard to the next generation and the next generation. Even if you don't fully understand it, you still pass it on the way you received it. Right, carrying on. Now, when the king's army had gone back and told the king that they couldn't find the doctor, the king sent them out again and told them they must stay in the jungle till they caught him. So all this time, when the doctor and his animals were going along towards the land of the monkeys, thinking themselves quite safe, they were still being followed by the king's men. If Chi-Chi had known this, he would most likely have hidden them again, but he didn't know it. One day, Chi-Chi climbed up a high rock and looked out over the treetops, and when he came down, he said they were now quite close to the land of the monkeys and would soon be there. And that same evening, sure enough, they saw Chi-Chi's cousin and a lot of other monkeys who had not yet got sick, sitting in the trees by the edge of a swamp, looking and waiting for them. And when they saw the famous doctor really come, these monkeys made a tremendous noise, cheering and waving leaves and swinging out of the branches to greet him. They wanted to carry his bag and his trunk and everything he had, and one of the bigger ones even carried Gub-Gub, who had got tired again. Then two of them rushed on in front to tell the sick monkeys that the great doctor had come at last. Oh, wonderful! But the king's men, who were still following, had heard the noise of the monkeys cheering, and they at last knew where the doctor was and hastened on to catch him. The big monkey carrying Gub-Gub was coming along behind slowly, and he saw the captain of the army sneaking through the trees. Oh, hang on, I missed a picture for you. Here you go. There's the monkeys all waving and cheering and waving branches and all sorts of things like this. They're up in the trees because the others are arriving. There's the others arriving. There's the doctor. I'll carry on. We're nearly there. The big monkey carrying Gub-Gub was coming along behind slowly, and he saw the captain of the army sneaking through the trees, so he hurried after the doctor and told him to run. Then they all ran, harder than they had ever run in their lives, and the king's men coming after them began to run too, and the captain ran hardest of all. Yes, because he doesn't want to be in trouble with the king, does he? Then the doctor tripped over his medicine bag and fell down in the mud, and the captain thought he would surely catch him this time, but the captain had very long ears, though his hair was very short, and as he sprang forward to take hold of the doctor, one of his ears caught fast in a tree. That's definitely fantasy. And the rest of the army had to stop and help him. By this time, the doctor had picked himself up, and on they went again, running, and Chi-Chi shouted, Hi, Kibo, that's good. No, that wasn't what Chi Chi shouted. Chi Chi shouted, "It's all right, we haven't got far to go now." But before they could get into the land of monkeys, they came to a steep cliff with a river flowing below. This was the end of the kingdom of the Jolliginki of This was the end of the kingdom of Jolliginki, and the land of the monkeys was on the other side, across the river. And Jip the dog looked down over the edge of the steep, steep cliff and said, "Golly, how are we ever going to get across?" "Oh dear," said Gub Gub, "the king's men are quite close now. Look at them. I am afraid we are going to be taken back to prison again." And he began to weep. But the big monkey, just a moment, sorry, I'm just looking to see what comes next in the pictures. But the big monkey who was carrying the pig dropped him on the ground and cried out to the other monkeys, "Boys, a bridge! Quick, make a bridge. We've only a minute to do it. They've got the captain loose and he's coming on like a deer. Get lively, a bridge, a bridge!" The doctor began to wonder what they were going to make a bridge out of, and he gazed around to see if they had any boards hidden any place. But when he looked back at the cliff, there hanging across the river was a bridge all ready for him, made of living monkeys. For while his back was turned, the monkeys, quick as a flash, had made themselves into a bridge just by holding hands and feet. And the big one shouted to the doctor, walk over, all of you, hurry." Oh, Goriki, can you do a shout out for me, please? Thanks. Gub Gub was a bit scared walking on such a narrow bridge at that dizzy height above the river, but he got over all right, and so did all of them. John Dolittle was the last to cross. Here we go. Here's the picture. Picture. There you go. John Dolittle was the last to cross. I'm guessing that's him there. These must be the soldiers, and this must be the land of the monkeys on the other side. Right, carrying on. John Dolittle was the last to cross, and just as he was getting to the other side, the king's men came rushing up to the edge of the cliff. Then they shook their fists and yelled with rage, for they saw that they were too late. The doctor and all his animals were safe in the land of the monkeys, and the bridge was pulled across to the other side. Then Chi Chi turned to the doctor and said, "Many great explorers and grey-bearded naturalists have lain long weeks hidden in the jungle, waiting to see the monkeys do that trick. But we never let a white man get a glimpse of it before. You are the first to see the famous Bridge of the Apes." And the doctor felt very pleased. Not only had he seen it, he had used it. There you go. So there you go. That's the end of today's reading. The rest of the family are back home. So there's various noises you can hear downstairs. And I am going to, they're making cups of tea. They've had a big long drive. They went up north to go and see a museum and have a look around and have lunch and all sorts of things like that. And now they're back again. It's a long drive. It's about an hour and a half if you go the fast way. But one of the ways they went was up the coast, which takes longer. But it's got beautiful views. If you ever get a chance to do it, you go from Lee out northeast of where I live. It's a little tiny village out by the sea, New Zealand village, not an English style village, and you follow up the coast over some big hills and then down, and then you follow back in from the coast a little bit, but you keep on the main on that road that heads north, and you go past some cliffs and you go over some rivers and all sorts of things like that. It's a wonderful journey, but it is a long way, so it's a long day. So I'm going to be finishing here, and then I'm going to start cooking dinner. What are you going to do for the rest of your day, night, evening, morning, whatever it is, wherever you are? I hope it's pleasant. I hope you have fun. I hope you keep well, and if you are not well, I hope you get well soon. Thank you for being here with me. It has been lovely having this reading time with you. I'm just going to have a quick look and see if I can remember what the, good. Aunt says she's going to go and snooze soon. I'm just going to see if I can find if these other guys are online and we can go over and raid them. There you go. So if you are able to stay up a bit longer, that would be great. Right, found it. I just have to remember the beginning of the name to see if I can actually get it first. Yes, they are live. So we are going, no, not that. I did that last time. I went and pasted something instead of copying something. So we are going to go and raid Hoot House live stream, which is a place that has some owl boxes. There are not owls living in the owl box at the moment because it's not breeding season. Well, the owls that commonly come to this box are not breeding this season, but there's also a camera in the horse shed, so you may be able to see the horses wandering around, and you'll see things fly past the cameras because it's nighttime over there. So here you go. Yeah, oh, that's nice to know. The owls come and nap there from time to time. So I'll just get this set up. Not that window, I want this window, and I want to do that. Could have actually just remembered. I haven't done this often enough to remember how to do this, but that's okay. We're getting there. So those of you who can come with us on this raid, that's good. I'm going to leave my stream running for the raid, that end of it, and you guys can just join in. Say hi to them too, by the way. Do say hi to them. Raid now. There we go. Thank you for being here. Bye.